Hello air signs Libra, Aquarius and Gemini. Welcome to the Aries full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Libra rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aries, happening on Friday the 29th of September at 7:58 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So if you are in the southern hemisphere with me at about 2 minutes to 8, check out the eastern horizon and the moon will have just risen and it will be big and bright and juicy and full. Now we're thinking about your 7th house. Okay, so we're going to be journeying into the world of the other, of your relationships, of the people that you hold close, perhaps your clients too, the relationships that really mean something to you. And we're enjoying a full moon in Aries without an eclipse, and it's a bit unusual, but because the moon is it's too far away from the dragon's head to be gobbled up by an eclipse. So it almost feels like a reprieve. I want you to think back to March the 22nd of this year, Libra, and we did plant some seeds back then. We did think about your 7th house of the other, of your nearest and dearest ones who you hope to sort of form bonds with. And we planted some seeds. And then a month after that, there was the first eclipse in Aries. Remember, the dragon's head was still in Taurus, but it was quite close to the moon because the moon was in the final degrees of Aries. So it was a hybrid eclipse. So there's ground that we're laying to prepare you over the next 18 months. The next chapter of this eclipse story is occurring in your first house of the self, the soul, the center, and your house of the other, of the others in your life. So I think that this full moon, clear of eclipses, would be great for you to give thanks for the way that you're learning about relationships, to look around your 7th house and to see who is there at the moment and who you can show gratitude for, who you can give an extra special cuddle, or who you can extend a bit of love and warmth and affection to them. There's something here about sort of not peacemaking, but sort of like burying the hatchet, maybe. I'll explain why. Remember all of that those stories that I was telling you about Athena, the goddess that was the one to name Athens, goddess of wisdom, the goddess of strategy and the mind. Well, Athena has formed a near exact conjunction with the sun. And so at this full moon, Athena will be standing with the sun in Libra, beaming down their joined light to the moon. And so the way that I'm reading this is I can kind of feel that there's something about an olive branch, perhaps from Athena, being offered or proffered to some individuals in your 7th house. If there have been some blow-ups, if there have been some harder truths to accept, or perhaps even folks that you haven't spoken to in a long time, ones that you are coming back into connection with because you've been separate, and maybe there's something of a clarifying kind of feeling about this full moon in Aries for you. If you've got an olive branch to spare, Libra rising, I would highly recommend that you offer it, because you'll be surprised what's being offered in return to you as well. The dragon's tail is in your first house, so we are releasing. Probably there'll be some enforced shedding that you might feel as we move forward in terms of your individual self, in terms of what you believe your intention is for being here, or how you operate your life. The dragon's tail is always a place where things fall away. We don't really have any control over that too. It's good to know. It's good to sort of register that and sort of just allow it to happen. There's something about the emphasis on your 7th house this year. This is the 3rd lunation in Aries that we've had in 2023. So we're coming calling back to investigate the seventh house. And Chiron is still in there. Chiron's been in there for some time, but the essence of the wounding that can occur in relationships has been echoing throughout that part of your life for ages now. So maybe there's something of a highlight here. And if you feel brave enough, if you feel that you've got the energy and the stuff and the articulation, then give that olive branch out. Set it free. I'm going to get you some tarot. And I hope that you can feel that this this world of eclipses in the first house is something that you're like prepped for. Maybe if you know astrology, and if you know perhaps if there's folks in your nearest and dearest in your seventh house, perhaps if you can recognize who might be the Scorpio risings in there, you might actually glean some advice from them, because this marks the point where our Scorpio rising friends have experienced 18 months of enforced shedding in their sense of self, in their first house, different parts of themselves that they've needed to say sayonara to. And so maybe there might be a nice conversation between you and Scorpio at this time as well. Well, there's Scorpio. There's something that feels a bit unsafe too. There feels like that there's something that the fear is what I'm getting. Something emerging, something about to sort of transition, to change over, and great fear around that, a sort of mistrust. You know, sometimes when things are the same, it can be maddening and it can drive us all to distraction, but it's safe, isn't it, when things are usual and in the same, done the same way, the same routine, the same rhythm. There's something that's sort of dredged up here with the moon card, but you can see it's come out in reverse. And so what I'm sensing is that there's like a reluctance or a tremor of fear that's attached to what was unearthed, maybe at the last moon, at the Pisces full moon, or in fact maybe what you can kind of sense in the language of this Aries full moon in your seventh house, Libra rising. There might be some things that have sort of come to the surface that you weren't ready to look at. And funny that I said Scorpio, because the death card is the major secret of Scorpio. And that is to say, Scorpio is really unafraid to talk about the harder stuff. They're unafraid to really like dredge things up from the bottom. They're unafraid of endings too. In fact, if it ends with a Scorpio, you better believe it. There's no coming back from that. The death card is something that comes to us when we've had to cut our losses too. And when we're like, this is being put to bed. So this is room for something else. All of this fear in the death card too, I mean, this is saying to fear to me. The death card has a lot of fear in it too. The only one that's not frightened is the little kid. They're welcoming the beautiful bright white horse with open arms. They're unafraid of completion. In a way, it feels like there's that there's some sort of like magic that you're not able to take. feels to me that there was sort of a moment for you, Libra rising, where you felt really beguiled by someone and you felt that they were like too good to be true, or everything that they were saying was really hitting home for you, and they were building you up too. They were really building up your confidence in a way that you hadn't felt for a while. But then there's a limit here. You can see on this wind cheater it says over it. It's like there's a refusal to accept. It feels to me, Libra rising, that the fear of what these moons have been sort of showing for you, bringing up for you, is limiting your own access to what it is that you truly want in life, how you wish to sort of move around, how you wish to kind of act from creative, magical impulse too. The King of Wands is someone that is really kind of in their power when it comes to their magic and their creativity and their sparkle. And it feels to me that you're too frightened, or you have been perhaps frightened to accept that because it's bringing up too much for you. There's too much at stake. Again, there's that feeling of like safety, even though we're bored to tears. And it can be such a frightening space to be sort of standing on the precipice, you know, about to sort of like lean a little further in to take the dive. But this is kind of what this, you know, prelude to an eclipse is kind of feeling like as well, though, Libra rising. And if it's any comfort to you, you might not have to do anything. It might just occur as well. The different faces or different ways of being, different modes that you've had to live as or live by, the environment that you've been in, the silencing, the, okay, well, it's steady. It's not what I want. It's steady. That will not stay. If it's that will not stay. The trick is that we need to kind of prep you with a bit of make you feel a little bit more secure in the idea of change being a really positive thing. And if you can see clearly what changes you need to make in order to reclaim your fire, reclaim your wands, your place at the table with the suit of wands. The 7th house can teach you a big thing or two about fire as well, Libra, because Aries is cardinal fire, so it is like a match. So in relationships, it's really important for you to have someone who is good at starting the fire. And maybe this kind of fear of confrontation, or fear of confrontation's probably the right word. Like dissociation that you might sometimes feel when things are not working out or people aren't getting along. You know, that can be tricky for you. And so if we look to our 7th house, we look for someone who's like, yeah, what about this? And that isn't to say you're about to strike a match on everything that you've ever known and every sense of security that you've ever had, Libra rising. No. But let's prepare ourselves for some changes. It looks as though there's going to be things in your 7th house that just show up out of the blue. There's going to be some fire starters that appear for you. And there's going to be versions of yourself that are about ready to give, to hand over. Because it'd be really great for you to flip this card back around the other way. The moon's a beautiful energy. The moon teaches us about the dual nature of ourselves and how sometimes the call of the wild is just too irresistible. irresistible. And the moon can teach us that it's safe to do that. The light of the moon will light our way. So have a little think about everything that I've said. And don't stress. Look into your 7th house. Who's there? Who can you say thanks to? And what parts of you can you say thanks to as well? And maybe goodbye to? The parts that are keeping you constricted. The parts that are keeping you feeling stuck. Because it's safer than going out on a limb. That's your reading, Libra rising. Happy full moon. You can head to my website, umaruby.com, and I can draw you up a chart like this, and I can read it to you, and I can give you your birth card spread, and then I'll post you the chart in the mail. If I have read for you before and you'd love another reading, but you're not quite sure how or which way to go about it, head to my bookings page. I've just published a series of new readings that I've been working on over winter, and they're quite simple in their description, but there might be some triggers in there that are like, that's what I want to talk about. So have a look, and they, as with everything that I do, they do incorporate tarot and astrology as well. So yeah, check it out. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I have included a little section in there now that is like a membership. So if you'd like to pledge some regular support for me as I continue to give you your horoscopes every 2 weeks, you can do that. There's an option there to plug in for a regular supporter. You can also just throw some change in the supporter tab too, if that's what you have to spare. It's always very much appreciated, and it's helping me to finesse and to grow and to continue on this path of learning and sharing that I'm on. I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk all about the eclipse in your 1st house, which I'm looking forward to. It's coming at a very auspicious time for us here in Australia. I'm really looking forward to justice being eclipsed in the most beautiful way possible for the people that live here. Until then, bye. Hello Aquarius rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aries, happening on Friday the 29th of September at 7:58 p.m. If you're in the southern hemisphere with me, and if you are, check out the eastern horizon at about 7:58, 2 to 8 on the Friday, because the moon will have just risen and it will be really full, quite close to the horizon, so it'll look quite big too. It'll be quite a sight to see, really beautiful. Now, there's a few things that I need to kind of explain to this one. I first of all want you to cast your mind back to March of this year, March 22nd to be exact. This was the time where we were discussing the new moon in Aries. 6 months ago, you can kind of consider this full moon as like the halfway point in the lunar year. And 6 months ago, we were sowing some seeds. We were planting potential for where we might like our village to be, what that might look like, what kind of environment locally will we get to enjoy. Aries rules your 3rd house, Aquarius rising, which is the house of the goddess, which is the house of the village. If you remember, there was the new moon, and then the month after, there was actually an eclipse in Aries. It was a hybrid eclipse because the dragon's head was still in Taurus, but the moon was really close in Aries, and so it was gobbled up. And so there may have been something that kind of short-circuited or rerouted that plan, reappointed that journey for you. Well, now, at this full moon in Aries, the moon's actually further enough away from the dragon's head that it won't be eclipsed. The eclipses this season will be in Libra, your 9th house of travel and expansion, and Taurus, the crescendo of the eclipses in your 4th house of your home, your roots, your privacy, your stability. So the story that's painting itself for me here, Aquarius rising, with this astrology, is this kind of feeling of being on the move, on the lookout for where to call home next. Now, my astrology, I'm a Pisces rising, so I can give you a hot tip as to what eclipses in the ninth house and in the third house, the gods and the goddesses, might feel like or might look like, what may occur. In the way that they worked out for me, I definitely had a sense of making plans for the journey here and there. Nada. Not working. Shedding. Releasing. And finding myself held in a particular space that I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to be. I had lots of emotions to move through with that, but then ultimately realizing that the deluge or the power surge rather than outage was occurring in quite a magical way. The house of the goddess, the third house, the house of the village, bears its potential for a lot of great, great lessons to be granted you. There's a lot of great information that you can receive from people in your third house that have to do with language, the spoken language, rather than academia or the written word, or a feeling of kind of like expansiveness in traveling and absorbing the sights and sounds of foreign lands. The pilgrimage is a great way to think about the ninth house. It's definitely an active journey away, whereas the third house keeps us somewhere in particular. Can you see what's sort of building up around this? There might be an urge for you to get out there, and you might find that plans are diverted for a time. This full moon in Aries is without eclipse. It's like a reprieve. It's escape the dragon. So I want you to use this as like a spotlight on the concept of your third house, what you wish for your village to look like, who you will be within that village, what kind of environment do you want to call your local, and who will be there, who will you interact with, what will you learn about life living there. I was speaking to a friend a couple of weeks ago and just looking at like rent prices and things like that, and I said, can a kid even afford to go to uni and live in a share house and work in a cafe or a bar at the moment? Because that's what I did. I mean, I graduated donkey's years ago, about 14 years ago. I went to an art school and worked in a bar, that I lived above. I put myself through school. That lifestyle seems a bit unattainable at the moment. And my friend actually said, yeah, you don't really do it these days. Like, you've got to be sort of rich or, have parents that are willing to front up for living costs and things like that. And I found that to be kind of really striking, just the disparity of like equal opportunity even in my lifetime, and how skewed that's become. The reason I'm bringing all of this up, Aquarius rising, is because the ninth house and the third house can talk to that kind of split in access. If the ninth house is academic and is quite intellectual and quite sort of grand, you can see that human history really shows us that that world, more often than not, was reserved for the privileged. And when we think about sort of, Greek myth and sort of ancient classic civilizations, the people of the village, of the town, couldn't read and couldn't write. It was irrelevant to their lives. They didn't know Plato. They didn't know any of this. The way that they worshipped the gods and the goddesses was through language and through sharing tradition and through, all manner of different kinds of forms of oracle reading and different ceremonies, different private rituals. And I like that, to remember that, because at times when getting a leg up seems to be rapidly becoming only accessible to a privileged few. To focus, to spotlight the possibilities of the third house is a really lovely thing to do, and to keep traditions alive that use voice, that use storytelling, that don't rely on academia or access to scholarship. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I don't know why I brought that up, but I think that that's kind of, when I look at the third and the ninth house, that's how I kind of can read it sometimes, especially because they're called gods and goddesses. You know, there is that kind of, there's something really rich and fertile that I feel about the third house. You want to be yourself where you live. You might feel that with these eclipses that we're entering into, it will be the next 18 months or so that this is going to happen, Aquarius rising. So at times you might feel that you're held in a certain place where you'd much prefer not to be, but it's going to benefit your healing. It's going to bring up things that you hadn't looked at in a long time. It's going to also show you and provide you with doorways and gateways into a different way of learning, a different way of creating magic as well, if that's where your mind goes too. Because this is gods and goddesses, there is some spiritual stuff here too as well. So if that's something that you're, gunning for, the deluge might be coming from the goddess rather than the gods. Try not to get frustrated if plans change. Try not to get frustrated if you find that your grand adventure, your pilgrimage as it were, if that all bets are off, if that doesn't work out, careful as you go on that journey too. The dragon's tail reminds us that there are things in life that we just need to let go of, and the dragon flicks them away without our say-so. So we don't, as much as we want to and as much as we hope to see that happen, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Now, apart from that, Venus is still in your 7th house of relationships, of the other. Venus is in conjunction with Juno at 22 degrees. They're both exact conjunction. Juno is the queen of the gods. Juno talks to us about connection and bonding and relationship. There's a lot of hot, beautiful, fertile opportunity in your 7th house at present, at this moon, Aquarius rising. Both of these, Venus and Juno, are forming square with Uranus and Taurus in your 4th house of home, roots, ancestry, privacy. There's something with this configuration that feels unexpected. It feels like, I wasn't really expecting this, but I'll take it. And maybe it has something to do with the potential rerouting of your plans, of your itinerary that you might be encountering as time goes on. But I like this square, the square with Venus, and Venus is stationed direct, so it's all steams ahead, full steam ahead. And Venus is, a square from Venus is like, more. To Uranus, it's like, yeah, you had no idea. You weren't expecting this. But if it feels good, do it. I found in my life, I've done a lot of seeking, I've done a lot of journeying, I've done a lot of the grand gesture of like traversing, terrain to find love, to find someone that will accept me. It's taken me until now to really recognize that you know, to really recognize that I'm loving myself sick at the moment. And that's the time when you can let love in, when you can be by yourself and you can look backwards and forwards all at once, and you can consider everything that you've been through, every opportunity, every glimmer of potential. You can think about yourself back in the inquisitive days too, before trauma, before things hurt, before you were put through or put yourself through agony. And you can think about what you've learned and what you've got to offer and how wonderful that is. And you can feel content in this moment just by yourself, sitting there solo. You can be like, holy shit, I know a thing or two about love. I know a thing or two about heartbreak. I know a thing or two about self-loathing. And I'm really moving through this. And in this moment where I am, didn't expect this ever to happen, but it's because I'm here that I feel this way about myself now. If I keep on searching for someone that will love me, I'm going to be running away from myself. If I can stay here and take the hint that I'm here for a purpose, to heal and to redirect my opinion of what I thought love was, and my worthiness for love as well. You can see here's the Queen of Wands. We're moving away from that. The Page of Swords is here too. This feels to me like there's going to be a release of some of that hunger, and there's going to be a welcoming in of like a crystal mind. Maybe it's an air sign, Aquarius, I'm not sure. Could also be yourself as well. You see this young person here holding the sword of truth, the sword of knowledge. This could be what's keeping you in place, is to develop that relationship again, to step aside from some of the heat that the Queen of Wands is offering. And she's not going anywhere. You can always come back to the Queen of Wands, and the Queen of Wands is awesome company. Once you realize that you don't have to be anybody except for yourself in her company, the Queen of Wands doesn't want you to change who you are in order to fit into what's going on in their life. Who you are is still inside of you, Aquarius rising, and they're incredibly smart, they're incredibly lovable. And this time, potentially, of being held is going to show you that you will be loved for exactly who you are right now, that your healing is a continuum, and that you're worthy of love right now, and that you're going to stop chasing the dragon. That's your reading, Aquarius rising. I hope the leaf blowing isn't killing your vibe. Much love to you. Head to Umarubi. You can get your birth chart read. They look something like this one here. I'll draw it up for you and read it to you via Zoom, along with your birth cards, and then I'll post it to you in the mail. If I have read for you before and you would like another reading, perhaps it was from a time before I started drawing them up like this, you can head to the bookings page on my website and go through the Back for More section of my website, and you can see I've just written a series of different forms of readings for return customers, and there might be some song lyrics in there or some imagery or some key words that trigger you and like, yes, I want to talk about that. So do book another reading if you'd like one, and I'll draw you up a chart and send it to you if you've missed out. What else? You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. I have set up like a membership section on that site. It's not, don't get excited, it's nothing flash, but it's just a way for you to like regularly, you can subscribe and there'll be regular contributions to my work that way, if that's something that you'd like to do moving forward. If not, you can always, click on the support tab and throw some more change in there. Tin, much love to you, Aquarius rising. Thanks very much for being here and supporting me on my journey. I'll be with you in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about the solar eclipse in Libra, which is the 9th house of travel, mind expansion, academia. So perhaps there's something to let go of here. Perhaps something is going to shed from your access. Perhaps something might not be as accessible to you as it was before. If that's the case, don't you worry. We're going to belt and braces, amp you up, take care of you. Much love, Aquarius. All my love. Bye. Hello, Gemini rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Aries, happening on Friday the 29th of September at 7:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. And if you are, it'll be just at moonrise. So the moon will be fullest as it's cresting the eastern horizon. So keep your eyes peeled because it'll be quite close to the horizon too, so it'll look quite big. It'll be lovely. Now, there's a bit of stuff to explain to you, I suppose, at this one, Gemini. I hope that we're getting our heads around the concept of the dragon's head and the dragon's tail in eclipses, and the idea that the dragon's head has just shifted into Aries from Taurus and Scorpio, and what was playing out for us in those houses over the last 18 months, and the lunations that provided some real insight and some real release without our intervention so much. Well, if you think about March of this year, if you think about the 22nd of March in particular, and the seeds that we were planting way back when, as far as your sense of community, about your friends, your good fortune, and who you roll with, maybe some of your ideas about the human condition too. And we were thinking about different ways that we could activate and plant seeds to have this part of our life flourish. And if you then remember that a month after, there was an eclipse there in that same house. So in April of this year, something happened that maybe was a bit of a spanner in the works, could be, or it might have been something that came out of the blue. Now, we're having a full moon in this house again, so it's the third lunation in this one lunar zodiac year. And there's no eclipse at this Aries full moon because the dragon's head is in Aries, but it's too far away from the moon to gobble it up. The dragon's head is at 26 to 24 degrees of Aries, and the moon's at 6 degrees of Aries, so they're in the clear. So what this says to me, Gemini rising, is that there's a nice moment to have a bit of a spotlight onto your sense of belonging in friendship and community, where you wish to roll around with, who you wish to roll around with. Spotlight it, shed some tears if you need to about the missed opportunities or things that didn't work out, maybe because of the eclipses in that space for you. but really look at it and highlight parts of your longing, where you wish to go, what does community belong to you, who makes up your sense of kinship and friendship. How are you active in that space too? I always think about Aries in the 11th house for you Gemini risings, and that sense of activation, community activation. So maybe have a little moment with yourself about those things. Perhaps indeed, if you are working in areas of community activation, it might be a great evening of celebration for you because you've been working so hard at this certain thing, planting these seeds, willing to grow, using the kind of foresight and sort of motivation of Aries to build community. That could be something that you're doing too. And at this full moon, it would be like, look at that work. Now, the sun is in Libra, and you can probably feel it in the air. We're just past the equinox now. So in the southern hemisphere, the light is going to gain its momentum. We're going to be enjoying more sunlight as opposed to the northern hemisphere where you're entering into the fall or the autumn and things are hunkering down, things are sort of getting a little quieter. But you can see there's that sort of balancing out feeling, always with Libra season, always with the equinox, when the light balances itself out. So hopefully, I know definitely for myself, the last month has been quite difficult. I really was feeling quite limited by Mercury in their retrograde position, about sort of a longing to get some things on the table and get things cracking, and just a real inability to get it out, a confusion. I felt really weighed down and unsure of where and what to do. So hopefully now that Mercury is stationed direct, we can feel that kind of clearing. We can feel that everything that we gleaned was for a purpose, and now we've got enough information that we can start moving with it. Another thing that I'd like to say is that the asteroid Athena, remember, goddess of wisdom, has the olive branch and has conjoined the sun in Libra in your 5th house of creativity and pleasure. So if we think about that is the way that the spotlight is being directed, your individual sense of self, the way that you express yourself creatively and otherwise, the way that you glean and seek pleasure, is highlighting your 11th house of community bonds. So just sit with that image for a moment. Maybe there's folks that really feel like your people, they feel like you're connecting with them. Perhaps they're a bit further flung too. It might be a great evening for you to express your gratitude for them and to sort of reach out in a way that they can feel, as disparate in location as you might be. That might be a nice thing to do as well. Gemini rising. There is going to be eclipses in Libra and in Aries over the next 18 months. In fact, after this full moon reprieve, 2 weeks after that is the first eclipse in Libra in your sense of individual self-expression, your creativity. There'll be definitely things that you need to let go of and to shed from yourself in terms of those parts of you. Perhaps your there might be limits currently to the way that you can express yourself, or the way that you feel that you've got access to pleasure, the way that you feel embodied in that area. It might be due because there's a major focus on the human group, the human collective, the human condition, and that might be pulling focus for you over the next 18 months. There might be that's the area of life that you need to be looking at, rather than something kind of a bit more sensual. You might not, you just might be feeling sort of disembodied. Maybe that's the right word. You might be feeling out of step, out of touch with your creative self, and there might be things that shed from you, and these things could be self-consciousness, or they could be self-limitation as well. But we'll go into that horoscope in 2 weeks. I'm going to give you a bit of a care package for eclipse season. But let's consider this one a reprieve and a spotlight that's open to share gratitude for those that you would consider to be a good friend. Yeah, little olive branch. So I'm going to get some tarot for you, I think, Gemini rising. It's been a funny old year, hasn't it? In my research, I went back and had a look at some of my notes and diary entries from the sowing of the seeds in March of this year, March 22nd, and then April 20th was when the first eclipse in Aries happened. And it was a little bit painful, I'll be honest with you. There was some loss that was attached to those months for me, and some grief that, that was, tell the people that you love them as much as you can. And when it comes to your friends, when it comes to the kindness of friendship, which is a really, really, really resonant, one of the most, if not the most important form of love, I might say. When it comes to these friendships, remark as often as you're able at how much you appreciate the people that are your friends. Because sometimes we don't get that chance. And that's not a regret that you need to bear on your shoulders, Gemini rising. It's an encouragement to say, I love you while you can. Got lots of wands for you, my darling Geminis. Yeah. And let's face it too, perhaps there's this advice for you that I'm giving you to reach out. You might be receiving 1 or 2 or 3 beautiful, powerful messages of connection too. There might be some things that are sort of brought up, or some fires that are re-stoked for you, Gemini rising, that might make you feel a little bit more in step with some of that 5th house stuff that we were talking about, that shedding. It's not always to say that, like, it's not limits, but shedding, I think, is the right word. When you feel yourself, when you feel connected to your magical prowess, when you feel really that you're embodying something that is really magnetic, and when you're showing yourself, like, when you're treating yourself with reverence, when you're really into your thing, and when you're really proud of the work that you're making, and when you're feeling that, you know, your skin is brighter and your teeth are brighter and your hair's clean, all of those lovely feelings of, like, feeling attractive, it's there's nothing like it, and it's not a weapon, and it's a sometimes there's other things to think about. And we go through periods in life where we'd much rather not be perceived, and that's completely understandable. Sometimes there's that, I've got that image of like, yeah, you ask a little kid sometimes, what superpower, you can only have one, what would you like to have? The one that makes me invisible. It's very interesting to register that. And that feeling in yourself too. The power to be invisible, to be imperceptible. And it's never usually so to be sneaky and to sneak around and to spy. It's to be not looked at. That's a real urge sometimes for some people, not to be perceived, to disappear. It's a beautiful relief and a wonderful feeling when you receive a message from wherever that welcomes you back into perception, when you feel that you would like to take that invisible shield off and come back into the group or yourself. It's okay to want to disappear sometimes, Gemini rising, as long as you come back, as long as you use that time away wisely and you use that time to be kind and gentle and good-natured to yourself. You don't use that time away to berate yourself and flagellate yourself and get trapped in the brain, trapped in the mind. If you're doing it to ease some or process some emotions, that's valuable work. Please know that you are welcome to come back whenever you like, and that you are loved, and that the way that people perceive you is one thing, the way that people love you is another thing entirely, and that this public-facing self can, and let's face it, a lot of us know it, it can be a burden, and it can be something that really becomes so taxing that the urge to just melt away and disappear can really grow and really, really, really take us over. Your perception is not as important as how much you are loved. You are loved so much, Gemini. We adore you, Gemini rising. You take very good care of yourself. Enjoy this full moon in Aries, this reprieve, and perhaps use it as an evening or as a moment in time to reach out and to put the spotlight on those that you would consider a friend, that care about you, and let them know that you hold their friendship in high regard and that you're grateful for it. That would be the best thing to do, if nothing else. You take sweet, good care of yourself, Gemini rising. You can head to umaruby.com and I'll draw you your birth chart. I'll read it to you and then I'll post it to you as well. Or if I have read for you and you're wanting to get together again, head to my bookings page and you'll see I've just posted a whole series of new readings in the Back for More section. So there might be some keywords in there that trigger your interest and you're like, oh yes, I need to speak to my pal Uma again and have another reading. You can do that there. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I've also set up a membership part of that website. It's nothing flash, but if you have the money and it's something you'd like to do, you can subscribe to my Buy Me a Coffee, and that gives me a monthly encouragement from you So if that's something that you're able to afford, I'd be very grateful for that. If you've been enjoying my horoscopes for some time. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks and we'll talk about the Libra solar eclipse. So let's get ready. Let's get ready to shed, Gemini. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.